Welcome to this restorative compact session where I'm excited to share with you a focus on the front core sleeve. So we're going to branch out from that core sleeve in the sequence as well. So it's a compact, specified featuring putting the tissues where you want them and then calling for movement. And I really enjoy doing work in the front lanes of travel in the body. And I feel that that gets gravity flowing through to hydrate the tissues in the front, since we spend such a heavy amount of time in more of a slouched, dropped forward position. So we're going to feel if we can revive these tissues in the front, and then notice if we put those tissues in a place that we want them to thrive and hydrate, it might call for some movement and ease in our structure, and allow you to feel a little bit more spacious and open and up. So I want you to have a couple blankets, a bolster, 2 blocks, a sandbag, and a yoga belt, okay? So we're going to need a wall space that is at the size of the short edge of your mat. You want to have that bolster placed at the base of the wall, across horizontally, and then you want your blocks and your sandbag nearby. Okay, so let's start on our backs with our feet on the wall, knees bending, so you have a deep crease in the knees. And then as you start to lower onto the back space, we're focusing on the spinal column extending from a easeful lower back. So I want you to have your knees propped to position them pointing up. And then you'll need to kind of navigate the spacing on this, but I think the supported bridge beginning is quite intense, very high density pose with a wall. So you're going to walk the feet to the edge of that bolster, lift up your hips, and then slide 1 block at the mid setting under the back of your pelvis, and then stretch your feet forward so that they plant into the wall. So you really want to feel that your feet push into the wall for this position. Okay? So you're on a mission to find supported bridge pose. Okay, so this might take you a little bit of time. You'll place a sandbag across the top of the thighs after you find your feet touching the wall. Be sure you're oriented close enough to feel the top of the foot, the bottom of the foot, the top part, the ball, and all the way down around the contours to your heels. Okay? Let the legs really feel like they're supported by the bolster and they can sink down. So my sand is slid down, so it feels like there is this awareness of lengthening the front of the thighs. If your knees and your feet really tend to turn out, what you might do is place a belt around your thighs and wrap that belt so the thighs stay internally rotated. And then we take a lateral motion for the elbows to spread open and the ribs to feel that expansion and contraction. In a mild inversion, your diaphragm is still going to descend on the in-breath, of course, but it's a slightly challenging core awareness for your diaphragm and your core muscles. So let's come into this first pose. Called Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. That's the Sanskrit name for this pose. And we are leveling out these whole front core sleeve. As you can tell, you're focusing on a complete feature in the front, so the gravity flows through this front body, slides down the sides, enhancing the breath flow to the upper lobes of the lungs. Please let your eyes relax. Inhale for a count of 4. Belly fills, softens. Exhale for a count of 5. Now, as you experience that sense of the lateral spread of the mid-chamber of the body, let's take our belt, and unless you have it around your thighs to keep them together, you'll be able to use your belt right now for your arms. So we'll bring our arms overhead, and we'll experience that pull of the belt, intensifying the certainty of that core sleeve, elongating, and just awareness in the front body. Try to really empty the weight of your legs into the bolster. Really empty that. Wave of breath in and out completely. Now release the grip on the belt, and I want you to let your hands slide that sand aside and begin to walk your feet on the bolster, and then as they are helping support this transition to legs up, you're going to tilt the back of the pelvis on the block, take the feet away from the bolster in midair, and then stretch the legs straight up. Okay, keep that balance of the sacral tilt, and notice if this lateral movement has shifted into where am I at balance internally moment. It feels like kind of a gravitational shift. So I want you to notice that gravitational shift in the nervous system and utilize your experience of in and out breath, lengthening your exhale to calm the nervous system. Feel the separation of the feet, circle them, rotating outwards, and span around the roots of the toes, both directions. Feel that circling completely. Now as the legs merge together, we're going to lower down just the left leg and let the right thigh stay extending up. Take a hold of that belt and see if you can carefully craft putting it under your right foot and take it back up. Now I know the block is fairly high, so if you decide this is too much oomph in the front of this left thigh, it's too much arch, then you remove the block, you move it down to the lower setting, which is completely fine. So take the opportunity here to feel that full stretch of that right foot up, pull the leg back. Keep the head down on the blanket so we're not going into an elevated neck position. Feel the back space of the right leg. Okay, walk the hands as high up on the belt as they'll go with the shoulders on the floor. Flex. Now can you slide the hands down, giving your leg a little slack, and position it up to vertical. Mentally letting your eyes soften, feel vertical in the leg. And then change legs. Left foot comes up. Surprise yourself to switch. Right foot down. It's important to try to feel the wall with your foot. And on these levels of alternating leg up, you might like adding a sandbag to the rooted thigh. That's an option. You could try that. But as I move the right leg down through the foot into the wall, I'm also coaching my left thigh to motion back, but I still want to feel my right foot at the wall, right? That's important. So if I'm losing that experience, then I'm going past my level, right? I'm not really staying with my ability. So keep that right foot grounded at the wall. Your elbows could be on the floor. They could be reaching up. Your hands could reach to the foot on the belt. You choose. Just feel and sense the balance and the imbalance as well, right? The imbalance. From imbalance comes inner balance. Possibly. Okay. Now we're going to stretch our hands back up. We're going to bend the left knee and then slide that belt off the foot, place it aside. And then as we start to bring the feet both to the bolster, we're going to lift up the hips, slide the block away, spine down. And feel that bridge flow. Feel the lift of the hips, the front rim of the thigh plate, and then lower down. And kind of feel this pelvic plate. Think of it as a platform that moves up and down. And it's unique to this position of movement to calibrate that circulation through the spinal column. So I'm going to scoot closer to the wall now. Bring my blanket in under my head. And then as you lift your arms up and overhead, push down into your bolster. And then you're going to slide back down all the way through. Inhale, lift the hips, stretch the arms back overhead, reach through the arms. Exhale, spine down. One more time. Inhale, rounding the back, lifting the hips up, spending the energy on extending through the front rim of the pelvis, and then lower down. Now, we're going to windshield wiper the knees, and as the feet spread out on the bolster, it's nice to have the platform of the bolster to support the angle of momentum in the thighs, right? This position from your lateral rotator of your thigh down through that front sheath of the thigh muscle, the quadricep. So as best as you can with your space around you, I mean, I'm limited here with the wall to my right, but you might have a little more space and be able to spread your arms out or feel a little more free with your knees. So you kind of work within your means, and that's certainly not limiting me. So when I shift my knees side to side, I'm going to take the legs back to neutral, cross the right leg over the left leg. Now notice my left knee swishes in over to the right to get that right leg to have a full crossover. Grab a block, place it next to your left hip, and then lean your right knee over towards that block. So it's crossed over the left leg, yes, but you're in a crisscross sandbag onto the external right thigh. This is a pretty good sequence to apply to after you've taken a long walk, a hike, and the continuous forward kind of sludge of movement. This is a nice one to get the front body back into balance. Open that right arm out. Let your head roll to the right and be. Let your eyes close. Sense the openness of your chest. Spread out the left arm as well as the right as best as you can in your space. And feel these opportunities in this hip. Now this is just one choice for this crossover. You might decide, oh, I just want it a little different. Maybe you don't want the legs wrapped because of the knee pressure. So if you're going to change that up, I'm going to give you one modification. And it's okay for you to move your bolster over to the left and cross the right leg over onto the bolster and stack on the sand here. So that might feel better for you. They're both good. I don't think I have a preference for either. I can see benefit to both. This feels a little bit more complete for my whole body, like a very kind of relaxing the centerpiece of my lower back is what this feels like. I don't know, how does it feel for your back? Which choice do you make with the hip crossover? And now keep in mind, one of the focus points I really have is that we're placing the tissues purposely in a direction, a pose, you could say, and then we call for movement after we get out of the pose. So now you're going to take your sand off, and then as you come back onto spine, whether your bolster's in front of you, under your foot, or it's on the other side, you're going to bring the knees to the chest. So my right foot is on my left knee, and I'm holding the back of my left thigh and squeezing the thighs both to me. Keep the knees in a strong bend. Both legs are bending, so this left leg stays at a hinge. Uncross and start to take on the other crossover pose. So I'm going to move my bolster to the right side. Let the right leg stretch down, scoot back, and then bring the left leg over to the bolster. Okay, and sand on the external left thigh. Door one. Okay, those of you that followed the other pose that I offered, we have our foot on the bolster, left leg crossed over the right leg, knees go to the right. This could work with the bolster on the side as well. Right? You could see how this could bring, for some, kind of that spatial reckoning with the back of the pelvis, lumbar spine. It's nice to get this kind of swift motion through the spine in one pose. Right? It's both arch, it's nice axial extension through the spine, spread both arms out, open the chest, feel where you inquire breath, slow, balance, in and out breath. So what we're going to move into is a shift of sorts coming up. So I want you to complete this hip crossover. Feel where the leg is shifting to the right, the left leg. And now where do you place the left thigh once you move the sand aside? You're going to bring the body back into neutral pelvis on the floor. Bring the knees into your chest. That left foot stays hooked on the right knee. And voila, you're here. Stretching in sensation to the left leg and the low back. Left leg all the way up into the roots of the hip. Hip roots. Uncross, roll up to sitting. Okay, so this is going to be the second part of this set of poses I'm offering today. And what I want you to do is just put that bolster aside for a second here. Okay, and we're going to turn so that we're facing away from the wall with our feet at the wall. I think you're going to want a blanket under your knees. Okay, so situate that blanket just like you want. And when you have that blanket situated, if you do happen to have your bolster nearby, just place it so it's a convenient reach for you. And then when I kneel onto the blanket, I have it situated back enough so that it's comfortable for my balance in my hips. See, it raises my hips up a little bit and level with my spine. So your hands are, your elbows are down, depends on your wrist level of awareness. And I want you to bring your back into a natural rounded flex spine. So round your back into cat, chin to chest. Inhale, arch. Look forwards. Exhale, round, chin to chest, spine curl. And spine arch. Right, so it's kind of like you're drawing a little bit of a question mark through your back. So keep the activity lively in your spine, which means you might make some circles with the hips. You might stay with this rather specific edge of rounding and arching like you used to, but taking that creative blend of movement and circling is really healthy for the basin of the hip, right? Kind of getting some, like you're scooping through your hips. Go both directions, scoop around. Make circles, like your navel's drawing circles. If there was a ray of light out of it to the floor. Okay, spread the arms, reach them wide on the mat, forward and out, and stretch your hips back. Try to feel as complete of a child's pose as you could right now with your knees. My hips are a little high. Some of us might want our knees a little wider, hips a little lower. So stretch your back, your forehead down. Fingers spread open. Inhale up to table. Exhale back to downward dog. Lift the knees, stretch the heels back at the wall so they're tilted up. Okay, so you have a little bit of a high heel here with your feet. Okay, now with that energy of motion in your back muscles, take a leap here. You're going to actually leap a bit. You're going to stretch forward with the right foot, and I know you're going to need to get your blocks here. They will be necessary. So grab a couple blocks, mid to high height under your hands. Stretch the right foot forward. Take a pretty long lunge here, and let the left thigh hover over the blanket. Experiment with the support of your right knee above the ankle, but really push away with that left heel at the wall and stretch the right knee forward. And then lift up your chest muscles, forward and up. Keep the back knee off the blanket. And then lift up your hips high, stretch the right knee straight out through that right leg. And then see if you can tilt the right foot, the toes up. Okay, so you're flexing the foot. Still, the blocks are helpful. Inhale, lunge. Right knee above the ankle, only above the ankle, no farther over. The left heel pushes into the wall. Exhale, stretch back. Toes up, right foot. Head down to the right leg. Inhale, forwards. Breathe. Yeah, and try to get the spine to connect to the front rim of the pelvis and the back. So here's one thing I'm going to just kind of keep you going with that alternating lunge and movement back. Take a pause if you need to just take a breather and bring your knee to the blanket. But I want you to keep working on, keep going, that this whole front realm of this left thigh is kind of getting scooped out and lengthening. And then this back discs are getting hydrated. Okay. Now, lower the back knee if possible to the blanket. Stretch back into the the left foot into the wall and lunge left thigh down. Breathe. Okay, really notice your left thigh rim, kind of sculpting through that thigh. And then I want you to shift back, bring your right foot down and behind you, and then come into up dog with your hands on flat blocks. That means low setting. Lengthen the front rim of the hips. Just navigate and scan the left front leg, and just notice if you feel any difference in the front of the left leg. Do you feel a little more space there? Left leg. Waist stretching, arch spine. Whew, this could be intense. Come back, and very carefully, knees together, push into your right foot, step the left foot forward. Okay, we're going to lift up the back knee. So as you stretch through, now I know this can be listened to as if it's exercise, like instructions, patterns, do this, do that. But possibly you can go beyond my information spiel and kind of motion to what works for you. So you could even turn off the sound every once in a while and just kind of feel the movement of the legs alternating the bend and the lunge and the reach into the reverse lunge. So get that feel of movement scooping through. Now I'm going to take a shift out of this movement. I want you to try to stay with this lunge and reverse lunge, but just recall back to cat-cow, right? We were rounding and arching. It's the same pattern here with the lunge. Same pattern, a little bit bigger in the body, right? It's expanding out of the body. So trying to put the tissues where we want them and then call for movement. This is my spiel today. It's a little more of structural integration conversation, body work, but it really is important to kind of notice that we can do that with our poses. Our poses can be structurally integrative into our bodies having some change, right? And so we feel a little more functional movement. Okay, last time we shift our body back. I think maybe you can do as many as you want, but when you tip down the right knee, you feel that lunge through the left leg, feel the top of that right thigh reaching. Noticing the hip, where it's placed in the sheath of the skin, and if that sheath is stretching or if it's binding and tightening. Okay, so if your sheath on your thigh is staying with a real bind, I really encourage you to get your blocks a little higher. Breathe slower. Push your hips back, take time. Maybe you have to be slower with the guidance of trying to go so deep in the thigh. Maybe you're going to have to go back to elementary yoga and then start over and then get back to these lunges, right? So get a feeling of this thigh position. You walk often, so these motions are critical for existence, but how we hold the leg is going to be right now through our midsection today, our center sleeve, mid-chamber. Okay, so now my back knee is onto the ground, so when we take a transition here, I want you to bring that left foot back, take a bolster, straight in front, push off the wall like you're in a swimming pool and you're going to push off the wall and go forward and down on your bolster. And make sure the legs can lift up. You can lift your knees, you can push your heels into the wall and make some space at the front of the thighs. And get a feel here, if you walk your right foot a little higher up on the wall, can you push into your elbows or hands? If it's too much on your wrists, I would turn your hands a little bit out, but be careful of your lower back musculature here. It's going to really work the lower back to strengthen it. So I think of these poses as kind of core vertebral, assignment work, starfish work. Okay, now the right foot is up. So this is instead of holding my foot with my hand. So many of you realize there are poses where you would bend your back knee and hold it with your hand like this, you pull. So I'm trying to avoid that kind of knee pressure for all of us. And this creates a little more activation in your core muscles, your posterior core. Change sides, left foot up at the wall, right foot down, and if your right foot can be stretching against the wall, you're stretching through the whole foot with the toes under. You can do this with your elbows down, with a block under your forehead, right? If it's difficult, you can always change. Even though change is difficult, you can change. Yeah, you might excite different muscle patterns when your head is down and you're not pushing in your arms. So it might be helpful to kind of put the tissue where you want it, that length in the front of the thigh, and just be. Now when I lower the back foot and I come back with my hands under my shoulders, there they go, lengthen, push back to table. And now let's take our bolster and turn it across the mat horizontally. We're going to take what's called side sage pose. So I want you to push a little bit away from the wall. And you're going to move your blanket with you. And I hope you have another blanket. So I'm going to put my bolster next to my left thigh. And I'm going to take this other blanket on top of a block. It could be a stack of towels or blankets. So the height is a little tiny bit lower than your bolster or the height of your bolster. Slide the left arm between, reach the right arm overhead, and as I approach this position, I'm going to kind of feel my way of the content under my left side. So I'm going to encourage you to have a block under your right knee, and then put a sand on the exterior side beam. Left knee is bending or it's straightening out. Either way is perfect. Kind of be lackadaisical about it. Experience the right arm either overhead or on your side. And re-center into the side landscape. Waist, body weight. You know, part of our reality is kind of observing our body weight in space and how we can move it gracefully. So I think these poses are really interesting to kind of accept the differences of the upper lower body and how we kind of move the gravitational flow through the structure. So we're kind of working globally, and some sciences, you know, work like chiropractic works from spine, Rolfing works from feet, you know, everything's about the placement of the base, and the other's placement of the spine. So this is a little bit more widespread of a concept, these sessions, but we're basically navigating, you know, how we put our tissues in place, and then where we move, and then trying to generate what the call of movement is from those spaces: front space, side space, back space, and the inner space, right, through twists. Okay, so I want you to take that right arm so it gets a reach over the side of your body, side of your head. It's still considered body, isn't it? Brain bones. Now when my right arm opens back, I'm going to twist to the left thigh. Okay, and I want you to take a moment where you're in between these two sides to roll onto your back. Place a block between the knees and let your head lower down to that blanket and block and open the chest. Sand would be very welcoming here. Welcoming to your ritual of centering and grounding. Open the chest. Have at it. Cross layer, chest opener. Now you could do this pose with less height under your head. Okay, so if it feels like it's too jarring on your neck, take away the block. Use the block between the knees as a spacer. Now I'm going to switch my side sage, so I'm going to feel my way into this. Roll to my right, lean and come up for a moment to get that block inside between the left knee and the right foot, and then I'm going to lower onto my right side and put my sand on the exterior left side of the waistband to reach the left arm over or back or down. We're not so interested in you having to pulse your body into painful shapes. So if you feel like the pulse of the left arm feels best where it's reaching, or maybe best where it's expanding or landing on your side. And the weight of your body into that right hip. Really, it's the weight of the body. Now we'll give ourselves about another 10 breaths here. I want you to notice if your side body is feeling completely heavy or if it's kind of lingering and holding itself up. So you want all that body weight to sink into the props. So that might mean you have to bring your left arm to where it's completely relaxed, or maybe it's over the side of your head. Kind of feel your opportunities here. Now calling movement in, we'll bring that left arm over to the right side and then bring your left knee into the right leg. And then please roll over and let your hands bring you up. Come up to move back to the wall with your bolster. You're going to want to place your bolster a couple feet away from the wall and sit on it. Okay. So if you need to do any middle movements there that you feel called to do, go for it. If it's a down dog, or wiggle it out, or shake it out, or do a tantrum, that's good. But I'm going to bring you to this next position so we keep in track with the sequence. And this is going to be a spinal twist. I really like wall work. It's my favorite thing to do wherever I go. If I'm going somewhere and I need to practice, I go to a wall because I like the security of it and also the definition of it against my body. It feels good. The wall feels like it's pretty certain on. It's destiny. You know, it's pretty solid, as far as I know. So what I have is my bolster a couple feet from the wall. I know that my distancing is about this much. I want to be able to reach my arm back and bend the arm so I can push into the wall. So you're going to guesstimate that distance. If you sit at the bolster and you can reach your fingers back, that's generally perfect. So position your legs so that the left knee is bending and hooking under. And you're going to put a block if you need to. Actually, let's pass on the block. Let's try to sandbag on the inside of the left thigh. Cross the right leg over the left leg so you're in a full spinal base. Now, I know that some of us might find this doesn't work for our knees, so if it's a no knee option on this one, what you'll do is you'll put your right foot on top of a block in front of you. The left knee can be straight out. It could be you can unhook this leg and let it be a little bit more relaxed with the block under the knee, just as well. So if you're recovering from something with your knees, or it just doesn't work for your knees to do that deep bend, take this simple right leg forward, cross-legged position, okay? Those of us with the left knee on the floor, thigh open, sand on inner leg, cross the right foot over to the left, outside the left knee, and then turn to the wall. Right hand back at the wall, left elbow hooks outside the right leg, and take that twist. Now turn the waist so the right hand pushes into the wall and the ribs move back. Center your head to turn and close your eyes. Yeah, twists are extremely effective at massaging the organs, toning into our back muscles, and really getting some hydrating potential between the vertebral bodies, right? So you can feel that juiciness in the discs, right? In the spine. So if that right hand is thumb up, that's a good way to be with the right hand. Now, it's interesting if you have wrist issues when you put pressure on them, what this does. This can sometimes be really good, right, for the wrist, and sometimes you're going to want to go a little lower or just up the wall, okay? So it's about a shoulder issues, wrist issues will come up here, probably shoulders just as much as wrist. So if you need to get farther away from the wall, not so close, that might be easier. Okay, now I suggest you bring your right hand down all the way, okay, and feel as that right hand goes to the bolster, inner lift up with the heart, not with pushing your jaw up, but with your heart, and then turn back to center. Yeah, so you might really kind of feel this hip flexor firing. So put that right foot on a block. Any height in front of you will do. A blanket, a block is fine. Okay, put that foot on top. Try to keep that right inner thigh open. Put a sandbite on it. That usually helps. Open up that hip. You can tilt forward, lean forward. You can put your hands on the back of the bolster and move yourself forward. You're either leaning forward or you're sitting up right now. And you're going to take that left arm up and turn the palm back and reach that left hand, and if it's going to slap the upper left side of your back, your shoulder, slap that shoulder with your hand, tap it, and bring the right hand over to the left elbow and push it back. Push, 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 push. Even if you push once, you're going to have to try to push again to get that tricep to lengthen. This area gets really frighteningly tight. If you pause on your yoga practice, it will really tighten up. So all poses help this part of the body, right, that we do. Down dog, hands and knees, side reaching, all kinds of things that we do. Keep the left elbow up. Push with the right hand to the left elbow tip. Come out if you need to. All right, come down. Roll the shoulders back and down. Roll them. Scrub the shoulders here with the movement. Scrubby movement. Tilt the neck, stretch the sides of the neck out, side to side. Okay. Now, right foot is going to come down, hook it under, sand on. Left leg either stays on the block, foot on block, or cross it over. Okay. Now with that left knee pointing up, I'm going to hook the right elbow and I'm going to twist left hand at the wall, pivot. Okay, now really notice from one side to the next the differences in your shoulder and maybe your wrist. So I have a noticeable change in one shoulder to the other shoulder, so I do mention that because of my personal experience. But you might notice the weight in your thighs change, how you kind of transfer body weight. That's another postural thing. So we're trying to find equilibrium in our sitting bones here. Sitting equally. So feel how you lift up your heart, feel how you turn your ribs to the left and go in. Rotate, expand through the belly with breath. And when you're twisting, you want to let your abdomen move in a relaxed manner, so not trying to strive to pull it in. Try to let the belly soften and gently move with the breath. Feel the rhythm, feel the balance on the exhale right into the center network of the spine. Be slow. Right, this isn't a time to rush things. Now this side I got a little more out of my twist. I could tell there was less hardship in my shoulder. So if you do have hardship in your shoulder, your pec muscles, come back forward now please, center. Left foot on the block or something in front, and then stand on left leg. Right arm up, bend the elbow, push the elbow back, stay. And tilt if you like, but stay with the hand on the elbow. And so if one side is really sensitive in your shoulder, I want you to have the bolster farther away from the wall. So you have some, equal opportunity for each side, because they just have history and, possible injury recovery that still goes on when the tissues harden and stiffen and don't necessarily recover, especially scars. It's really important to notice that and to use your yoga practice to feel if it can make some dent in those areas that are compressed and holding on. Otherwise, why do it? It's for you. Okay, now if that right elbow is trying to get out of the pose, I think it is. Push it back, push it back, push it back. Push it back, push it back, push it back. Oh, I definitely feel my tricep. Okay, now I want you to take that right arm out. Oof, shoulders roll. Try those often, daily. Place your feet together in Baddha Konasana. Put a sandbag across them. And take a block between your hands. Stretch up. Hold the block, but hold it kind of gently. So I'm just kind of grabbing on. It's a spacer. And I'm going to bend the elbows and tilt the hands so that when my elbows are lifting up, I'm going to try to bring them closer to each other. Like you're trying to create an helmet. Elbow helmet. Okay, now if the elbows don't feel too rigid here, keep the elbows moving back as if you're trying to reach the wall with them. Okay, lift up, put the block aside, reach your hands together, interlace your fingers behind you, or use a belt, holding onto the belt, stretch your arms back. So if I use my belt, I do feel I have a slight bit more range. I can span out my arms. If my hands are together, it's limited. I don't have super long arms. I don't get as much in my chest muscles there with the arms back. So try both. Take the chest band so that the spine moves forward and up to the heart. The chest spans open. Hold firm into your belt length and breathe up and lean forward. Either hands holding your belt. Change if you need to. Change and get the belt if you need. Lean forward, inner thigh stretch. Push up with the belt or your hands. Now keep some liveliness in these arms. Let go of the belt. Bring your hands to your knees or just above. So maybe on the top of the thigh. Base of the quadricep is fine. Spread the knees open. Take reach. Come back, and we're going to take a final Viparita Karani, inverted action. So I want you to put your sand right to the side. Remove your belt. And then put your bolster all the way back up at the wall. Okay. Now I'm going to put a tiny bit of space here where I'm going to put a blanket eventually. So I'm just going to put the blanket down flat. I like the flat idea. I know when I sit in front of the bolster, this is maybe near where my head will be. So I'm going to come up upside down. So I'm going to sit on the very edge of the bolster, the short end, and then bring my rear to the wall, so you're actually trying to get your sitting bones on the wall. Tuck into a little ball, and then roll and let the legs swing up. Get your seat at the wall. Feel the weight of your head on the blanket, and then add a sandbag to your feet. Balance and lift. If the sandbag feels too much, then don't use it. If it feels just too much intensity, you can always pass on any of these options. You could use a blanket instead of a bolster, right? Now when I'm here, I'm going to practice the hands on the ribs so I can feel two fans in my body. My rib cage, my intercostals are like fans right now, with the bolster kind of holding those fans open. Stretch the fingers out, fanning. Let your eyes close. If you have any hardware on your eyes, please remove it. Relax that potential in-breath to fill the span of your hands. I know that you feel when you in-breath that diaphragmatic motion down. So I want you to keep that basic elementary action as your platform. So inhale, belly fills. Exhale, belly relaxes back up below the heart. But once you get into this balance of in and out breath, it'll spread out into your hands. So it will certainly expand. But it requires focus and dedication to get that expansion. It really requires focus. Stretch your arms back overhead. It becomes a little easier for that expansion once your arms are back because it fills open the chest. It's really nice. Belly moves, balancing the belly, the ribs, the heart. Now when the tailbone is weighted here, you can feel the sands property balancing way up from the tail. So liven up the flex of your feet, feel the legs backing. Notice where you're scanning right now. Is it in your belly? Is it in your ribs? Is it legs? What structural space do you scan right now? You know, it might be a convergence of breath and the kind of assigned alignment that you're given in a session like this. That sort of there's assignments to your alignment, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you decide to come out and shift the pose, stop, that's okay. But just give yourself a little bit of acknowledgement for what you've moved your body through, how you've taken the tissues into different layers and moved them. Acknowledge your efforts. This is a 5 to 20 minute pose. So you can stay here or you can follow me out of the pose. We're going to bend our knees, slide the feet, maybe at the wall or off of the wall is easier for my balance. And then I let the sand go away. Bring your feet together, your knees out, Baddha Konasana. Really important to push the legs here. Push the legs to the wall, inner thighs. Tailbone down. Feel that nice hook of the back of the pelvis. The arch is so great to have for your spine. Natural curve. Bring your knees together, roll to a side, and let your hands properly push to bring you up. Take a moment here, seated, cross-legged or on your feet. Hug your feet in. Feel your hands resting on your thighs. Feel the palm basin very soft at the very centerpiece of your hand. And then with that levity of the heart space and the sensation of breath, movement, and that dedication that you have right now to your body's wellness, just see if you can center in that.